We live, love, grow old, and die. We constantly try to live normally, as happily as possible, to whom it is given in this world. Most people don't think about it. They just live and go through life with careful or unbridled steps. Only a few people suspect what is happening on our planet, but someone manages to become an eyewitness, painfully knowing the curiosity of the aliens, their sophisticated cruelty and sadism. As reality shows, they are not alien to more base feelings. Hello everyone, my name is Strange, and I believe that people should know the truth. Our subscriber from Warsaw, who is a highly represented employee in the Bureau of Internal Affairs Investigations, contacted me and, under my personal guarantees of complete anonymity, transmitted a terrible story that happened to two Polish citizens. Today, I will reveal these terrible classified documents. Of course, for the safety of my source, all the names have been changed and the documents have been given an artistic color. Believe me, what you have to hear today will always change your life. And so, I'm starting. Kasia and Tomek finally broke out on a trip, decided to have a good time for the whole working year. We cut out this time, planned, and finally everything worked out. They're in Paris. The journey from Krakow was not long. Because this is Europe, everything is close and far at the same time. So a simple employee, say, somewhere in the port in Gdansk, Poland, could stay at home all his life without visiting Berlin, Geneva, or Paris. Kasia and Tomek were not ordinary employees. They belonged to the rank of the so-called golden youth and had the opportunity to travel. The hot music pressed on the ears with pulsating flashes. The dimness of the room was illuminated by flashing light under the rapid rotation of the strobe light. Tomek intricately intertwined his arms, moved his torso, jerking his head. Kasia stood with her back to him and playfully teased him, pressing her buttocks to his groin to the beat of the music. It was good and fun for them, loud and funny. Two girls nearby looked appraisingly at Tomek, laughed, and did not look away with unblinking eyes with dilated pupils. At some point, Kasia turned to Tomek and whispered right in his ear,
"I want you."
After that, she just grabbed his belt and pulled him along.
Kasia, I love you.
He kissed her lips, groped her buttocks, pressed her to him, and Kasia climbed into his pants. It all happened somehow immediately and unexpectedly. No. He did not possess her in the toilet of a nightclub, and Kasia did not have an orgasm. They simply broke away from each other, carried away by the whirlwind of movement in an all-encompassing bright flash. The last thing they both remembered was their hands reaching out to each other in a tearing maelstrom.
Kasiaya.
Tomejek!
A moment later, they found themselves in an unfamiliar room, white and empty, without windows but illuminated. There were no lamps. The light spread from nowhere. It seemed that the space itself radiated waves of pulsating light. It darkened and then intensified again. The room was plunged into darkness and illuminated by light with a very fast amplitude. The light was oppressive. There was a feeling that it was felt by the skin.
Thomas, where are we? Thomas, Tomek, do you hear?
A young guy was lying next to him. He was naked. Kasia looked at his chest in surprise and fear. Her gaze dropped to his genitals. It all happened by accident. Someone staged a prank, which was prolonged and not entirely successful. Kasia remembered how before entering the nightclub, Tomek gave her some kind of pill and she drank it, washed it down with beer. After a few minutes, it became fun, funny. Energy and euphoria were off the scale. She must have blacked out and they ended up here. But who brought them here? God! Kasia pulled her palm up to her face and covered her mouth in fright. Maybe they were kidnapped! Kasia began to shake Tomek by the shoulders, and only at that moment realized that she herself was also naked. His voice was breaking into tears.
Tomek! Wake up, Tomek, darling, wake up!
She was looking around. Surprisingly, there were no windows or doors in the room, just white walls. Kasia got up and ran to one of the walls, touched it with her hands. The rough surface, she walked along the walls from corner to corner, touched them, ran her palms over them, trying to find at least some crack, but in vain. From the protocol of the Gendarmerie of the Monet District, Paris.
During the morning patrol in the outskirts of the Monet District, at the intersection of Saint-Denis and Montrepont streets, two bodies were found under the Pointe Marie Bridge, side of Saint-Louis. A man and a woman, dead. There are multiple burns on the body, signs of rape. The bodies were taken to the morgue. An hour later, the unexpected happened. The woman came to life. A mistake by doctors when examining the body. The absence of a pulse. The circumstances are currently being clarified. The woman was taken to the Lariboisier Hospital in the intensive care unit. It is planned to resume the investigation after the normalization of the victim's condition.
The inspector was sitting in the office. It was past midnight. He looked over and over the photos of the dead man, who turned out to be Tomasz Mickiewicz, a native of Krakow, a Pole. The surviving victim is Katarzyna Wojciech, also a native of Krakow, a Pole and a lover of Tomasz Mickiewicz.
Jean-Luc, how did you manage to verify your identity?
The younger inspector was drinking coffee, and night vigils at the department did not bring him joy. Well, was he raped and killed for the first time? There is a working day defined by law, there are deadlines for the investigation, but the chief inspector of the gendarmerie, Paul Refenier, was a workaholic and tormented the entire department.
You won't believe it, Mr. Inspector. The girl has a tattoo on her ring finger in the form of an engagement ring. A thin inscription is made, Tomasz Mickiewicz, and he has a similar tattoo with the inscription, Kasia Wojciech.
Jean-Luc nodded his bald head.
That's funny. Good. Has the girl come to her senses?
No, he is in the intensive care unit. Coma. In short, the inspector grimaced. She just has a meat shop between her legs.
Paul Refenier rubbed his forehead.
And the corpse?
The man is also a meat shop, but only from behind. You know, Jean-Luc, it feels like their tank got fucked.
Well, for that matter, they could have had something inserted in the right places. Do you think the series?
The referee shook his head.
I don't think so. This is an isolated case. In addition, traces of ecstasy were found in the blood of both of them. They are ordinary stupid lovers who simply could be in the wrong company. It looks like it, but the testimony from the girl will need to be taken off.
The referee nodded his head and left the office. His path was quite defined. He was not going to go to the hospital. He was not going to write down sheets in a notebook, thinking over schemes for solving a crime. No, he had a completely different plan. He left the gendarmerie and got into his car, parked in a small parking lot, took out his mobile phone.
Hello? Mr. Boretsky? Greetings. I think we have a case in your jurisdiction. A girl and a guy. The girl is alive, but the guy is dead. Testimony? No, it was not possible to remove it. She's in a coma. The funeral will be held in Poland. He is Polish. Yes, I'll try to find out.
An elderly Czech German working in a French clinic shook his head sympathetically and contritely, looking at a young girl under a ventilator. Her legs were spread apart and a drainage was installed into the uterus to drain lymph and blood after eliminating the main bleeding. It's amazing how she survived. The injuries are more than serious, as if she was put on a stake. Although, why be surprised? Anything could have happened. Humanity went berserk. Macron's policy would bring the country to collapse. There are fewer and fewer native Frenchmen. From the next day, reduce the amount of painkillers. We will try to bring you out of the coma. In the morning, check the condition of the seams. Are all the interventions included in the chart? The surgeon nodded his head. Yes, her details have come from the gendarmerie. Her relatives have been informed. I think they will arrive tomorrow afternoon. The surgeon nodded his head in the direction of the girl. She's a Polish woman from Krakow. I see. The doctor decided not to explain anything to the girl's relatives, but to prepare an extract from the card. In words, he will say that she has experienced sexual abuse. Her condition is severe and unstable. That's it. His job is to treat, but he explains, clarifies, and searches. Let the gendarmerie, this is their job. Kasia was asleep. She was in a coma and couldn't move. Her whole body was shackled, and her mind was walking through the labyrinths of darkness. Time after time she fell into the darkness, floated out of it, and found herself in a square room with white walls. In her current state, she could not distinguish between a dream and reality. Everything seemed to her like a nightmare that was about to end. But the nightmare was just beginning. She remembered how some invisible force lifted Tomek from the floor, threw him to the ceiling, and then dropped him to the floor as if someone was knocking out a rug. Tomek was bent in half. He opened his eyes, surprised and unaware of what was happening, tried to stand up, but they did not let him do it. There were gurgling, hissing, and clicking sounds nearby. It hissed in my ear.
Don't move. If you want to live.
The girl screamed. Everything seemed unreal. She tried to run, but there was nowhere to run. In flashes of light, she saw clawed paws, followed by two creatures that appeared in front of her. They were not people. 2-meter reptiles, similar to crocodiles, stood on their feet, stretching their paws towards her. At some point, the creatures began to fight among themselves, biting each other until one of the creatures stepped aside, holding on to the bitten side with a long paw. The blood was greenish-blue. During the scuffle, one of the reptiles hit Kasia with its tail. The blow almost knocked her unconscious, but unfortunately, not completely. The last thing she remembered were the leathery touches, the crunch of a broken bone in her hip, and the pain between her legs that were spread wide apart. In the Department of Special Research in the USA, the city of Washington, there was a certain excitement on this day. The senior member of the external surveillance team responsible for the sector from the Channel inland, all the way to Paris and Bratislava, scratched his clean-shaven chin. Our man in Paris got in touch. It looks like our case. The head of the group was listened to by 3 subordinates, strong men in black jackets. One of them was in jeans and a black shirt. Out of habit, he held his palms to 2 chest holsters, arms crossed over his chest. The elder continued. So, it is necessary to carry out a secret exhumation of the victim's body. One Tomasz Mikiewicz, buried in the family crypt near Krakow. The body must be delivered to the laboratory, so you should take care of the issue of tissue safety and secrecy. You can put a doll in the crypt. The subordinates were silent and listened. The second victim, Katarzyna Wojciech, died in hospital without regaining consciousness and is currently in a clinical morgue in Paris. The body must also be removed and delivered. Is everything clear? 3 militants answered with one voice. That's right. Then do it. It takes 24 hours to implement. Are free. The militants left and the senior of the group sat down at the table. Damn it, I wanted to smoke. But a fire extinguishing system was installed in the office after a recent incident. The server room of one of the departments in New York burned down. It was an accident, although maybe it was a diversion. There are quite a few people among people who unknowingly or specifically serve the forces of universal evil, manifested on the planet by various dirty deeds. But the last case was out of the ordinary. The department foreman picked up the phone. Connect me to the head of the Washington department. Yes, I'll wait. After waiting for an answer, the foreman spoke. But at that very moment, he realized the stupidity that he was trying to convey to the leadership. I wish you good health. I wanted to say that the last case goes beyond the usual behavior of reptilian creatures. They didn't just want to commit violence, they killed them. Yes, I know. No, I'm not crazy or overworked. But you don't understand. You can't do that. They were silent for about a minute on the other end, and then they asked a simple and trivial question. Do you have any specific suggestions? Yes, we have information about the location of 2 underground bases of reptilian creatures. One of them is large, apparently the head. The second is smaller. I propose that the forces of military special forces conduct a raid and destroy a small base. Again, it will be possible to capture trophies, live individuals. There was silence on the phone again, and they also answered a minute later. We will think about it and make a decision. It was only in the evening of the same day that the foreman realized what decision had been made at the top. The foreman was shot in the back of the head on the stairs of his house that evening, but before the shot was fired, he was briefly explained that certain liberties were allowed to reptiloids in exchange for gene technologies that are actively being implemented in the scientific life of mankind at the present time, at this very minute. Today, we have revealed to you only a part of the information about the aliens. There is much more data about their activities on Earth. On our channel, we will reveal all the secrets and evidence of their presence. Subscribe to the channel and send me your stories related to aliens by email. You will find contacts in the About the Channel section. Together, we will force the authorities of all countries to disclose all the information they have. After all, people should know the truth.